Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
I am Dr. Rajiv Mishra, working as professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Patna. The title of today's lecture is Virtualization. Preface. In this lecture, we will discuss about the virtualization technology, its importance and the benefits. We will cover different models and key approaches to the virtualization, that is the CPU virtualization, memory virtualization, device virtualization. So, these are some of the main type of virtualization which we will cover in this lecture. So, as you know that virtualization is the key technology in building up the cloud technologies. Now, you know that the cloud technology, cloud computing technology that uses the virtualization techniques or virtualization technology is the key building block of today's cloud. Now, you may understand that this cloud, why we are talking about this virtualization technique, which is not a new technique. This is one of the fundamental principles of building today's cloud, and often this particular technology is used in the edge computing as well. So, as the background, to build a good background, we are required to overview and review this type of technology, which is called a virtualization technology, which is used not only in the cloud, but in edge computing also, and everywhere this particular technology is useful. Now, to understand this technology, different models we are going to cover about the virtualization. There are different type of virtualization we are going to cover here, and also different devices which require to be virtualized. So, there will be a separate discussion on CPU virtualization, memory virtualization, device virtualization and so on. So, let us understand about the virtualization. So, virtualization is not a new technology, as I told you that it is originated in 1960s at IBM, but nevertheless its importance is not gone down, its importance is still at the present, which is being heavily used everywhere, including cloud, edge and other technologies. Although it originated long back, but still it is used in cloud, edge and other new technologies. Therefore, virtualization we have to understand in good details. Now, virtualization allows concurrent execution of multiple operating systems and their applications on the same physical machine. Meaning to say, here in this example, you can see that this is one such machine, that is the machine which is having the hardware, like let us say that CPU, then it is having the memory, then it is having the devices, and of course, the networking. So, this forms a physical machine. This is short form called physical machine, and on top of the machine there will be an operating system running, we call it as a host operating system. So, it is a physical machine comprises of CPU, memory and network, and besides this there will be different devices. Now, this physical machine will have an operating system within it. This is called the host operating system, and on top of it the applications are running. So, this application will be running on this operating system. So, in physical machine only one operating system and which runs the operating system is the scenario. Now, to run multiple operating system, that means multiple applications with multiple operating system. If you want to run like this in the same physical machine, then it is possible, and this particular machine is called virtual machine, where the hardware of that particular machine becomes the virtual hardware. And to make it this virtual hardware available, there is a piece of virtualization layer, and this is called the hypervisor. So, this is where the virtualization comes into effect. This virtualization allows this illusion to the guest operating system and the application as if it is running on the same physical machine, but it is being accessing the virtual resources such as virtual CPU, virtual memory and virtual other such resources. So, this virtualization is the key technology which allows the concurrent execution of multiple operating system on the same physical machine. Now, when we talk about the virtual resources, that means each operating system here, this we call it as guest operating system. Each operating system will think as if it owns the entire hardware resources. So, for example, this one guest operating system which is running, this is another guest operating system is running, and they will make an illusion, this virtualization layer or the virtualization technology will make this illusion to this guest operating system as if it is running over the entire hardware resources, or they own the entire hardware resources. So, the virtual machine here we call it as the operating system plus application plus virtual resources. In the guest domain we call it as the virtual machine. So, this is the example which is shown here as the virtual machine. So, this particular virtual machine, to make this virtualization, when we say the virtualization means allowing the hardware to be accessed by more than one operating system, this is called virtualization. So, the virtualization is done with the technology, and that is called the virtualization technology. So, virtualization allows concurrent execution of multiple operating system on the same physical machine. Now, this particular layer of software which is called the virtualization layer, we are talking about that. So, virtualization layer will now manage the physical hardware for this virtual machine. It is also called a virtual machine monitor, or it is hypervisor. So, this particular virtualization layer, which is often called as hypervisor or virtual machine monitor, is the key component of the virtualization layer, and this virtualization will allow the sharing of the physical hardware into the multiple virtual resources for each of the guest operating system or each of the virtual machines. So, let us define the virtualization. So, virtual machine now is an efficient isolated duplicate of the real machine here, which is shown over here. So, if this is the physical machine having its own CPU, its own memory, its own network. Now, this particular machine, this particular physical machine having these kind of different component or the resources now becomes the virtual, and with this virtualization it allows to support virtual machines. So, this virtual machine is an efficient isolated and duplicate of the real machine. So, here you can see in this example that you have an application running on the guest operating system and often uses the virtual objects or virtual resources. Now, this particular virtual resources which are allowing this virtual machines to execute in more than one number, which are not only allows more than one such virtual machines to run on the same physical machine, but also it will give a complete isolation from each other. So, one virtual machine if it is running, it will not interfere with the operations of the other virtual machines. Now, this all is ensured by the layer which is there in the virtualization layer, and this layer is called the virtual machine monitor or hypervisor. So, it is called a hypervisor or virtual machine monitor. So, this hypervisor or virtual machine monitor, now it provides an environment essentially identical to the original machine, and here the program show at the worst only a minor decrease in the speed, and virtual machine monitor, that is hypervisor, is in complete control of the system resources. This means that virtual machine monitor has the full control to make the decision who accesses it, which resources and when. Now, why this virtualization is required? What is the use of it? Advantages and disadvantages. So, advantages of this virtual machine or virtualization is that these virtual machine allows that sharing of physical machine across multiple operating systems. So, when you say the sharing of physical machine by multiple operating systems, that means, and each of these multiple operating system is called a virtual machine, that means what we are doing is a type of consolidation. When we say consolidation, means so many physical machines are not needed, one physical machine can allow accessing or running multiple virtual machines. If let us say 5 virtual machines are running, that means over one physical machine, that means it is replacing the need of 4 other physical machines. Only one physical machine is allowing to access to run 4 different physical machines. So, in this way what we see is called the machine or physical machine consolidation. So, consolidation will save not only the energy of running multiple physical machines, but also saving the other resources such as electricity, maintenance and so on and so forth. And not only that, it also allows the full usage of the hardware by multiple virtual machines running on it. The other disadvantage is that although it has lot of flexibility, that this way you can use the physical machine hardware effectively by running multiple virtual machines. Cost saving will be there, then lot of electricity and space requirement also will be reduced. So, lot of advantages are there, although there are some little disadvantages there, that if you run the virtual machines with the help of hypervisors. So, that particular programs, that is the applications which uses the guest operating system to run on physical or on a using hypervisor, such programs are a little bit slow, but nevertheless the advantages are far more behind, far more than this small disadvantage. So, disadvantages are quite little compared to the advantages. So, therefore, the virtualization is the key technology which soars in the market, that is building up the current cloud and building up the edge computing technologies. Now, therefore, let us see the benefits of virtualization. As I told you, the important benefit of virtualization is the consolidation. So, consolidation means that it is able to run multiple virtual machines with their operating systems and applications on the same physical machine. Therefore, if you run, for example, if you run 5 virtual machines on a physical machine, so that means that 4 different need of 4 other physical machines, need of 4 other physical machines is eliminated, and this is called consolidation. So, consolidation means it is the ability to run multiple virtual machines with their operating systems within it, and the applications on a single physical platform. Now, this consolidation therefore decreases the cost, improve manageability, and why? Because there are few admins are there and with a lower electricity bill, all are advantages, and this is called consolidation. So, virtualization brings into the benefit of a consolidation. Second important benefit of a virtualization is the migration. So, migrate the operating system in the application from one physical machine to another physical machine, means that, so the operating system in the application. So, here let us see the one virtual machine will have its own operating system. So, it is called guest operating system, and here it is the application. Now, this particular concept will migrate this application from one physical machine to another physical machine, and that if the other physical machine has the same guest operating system. So, this is called the migration. So, the virtualization allows the migrating the operating system in the application from one physical machine to another physical machine. Now, this particular migration provides the greater availability of the service and improve the reliability, meaning to say that if let us say this hardware is not working due to some problem in the fault, then your application can be migrated, and therefore, the availability of the service in the sense the application which gives that particular service continues to provide these services by way of migration, and thereby improve the reliability, even if the hardware is failed on which this virtual machine, that is on virtual machine on which the application is running, can be migrated, and thereby saving up this particular availability of the services, and also will improve the availability. So, this is one of the most key advantages of virtualization. Next advantage is in terms of security. As the operating system and the application nicely encapsulated in the virtual machine, it becomes more easy to contain any kind of bugs or any kind of malicious behavior to those resources that are available to the virtual machines only, and not to the potential affect the entire hardware system. So, take this particular example. If let us say that there is a physical machine which is running multiple virtual machines, 1 virtual machine, 2 virtual machine, 3. If some security attack is there, so it will be happening on one virtual machine, it is not going to affect this complete hardware. So, maybe the other 2 virtual machines keeps on running even if there is a security attack on a particular virtual machine. So, this is what is the advantage into that particular security, that means security attacks will be confined to the virtual machine, is not going to affect the entire hardware of that particular physical machine. Besides all these advantages, there are some other benefits, such as it is also allowed to do a debugging in easy manner, and also provide affordable support for legacy operating systems. These are other side advantages. Let us see about the virtualization models. So, there are 2 most important, most popular virtualization models. They are called type 1 hypervisor and type 2 hypervisor. So, type 1 hypervisor called type 1 hypervisor, the other type of virtualization is called type 2 hypervisor. So, when you say type 1 hypervisor, it is called the native hypervisor or a bare metal hypervisor. When you say bare metal hypervisor, what do you mean by this is that if this is the physical machine, so on just physical machine there will be a layer of hypervisor, and this is called type 1 hypervisor. So, this particular hypervisor sits on the physical machine hardware. This is called bare metal, also sometimes called bare metal. So, it is also called the bare metal. Why? Because here you can see that the hardware, just above the hardware this hypervisor sits, therefore, it is called the bare metal hypervisor. and this type of hypervisor is called type 1 hypervisor. Now, other type of hypervisor is called type 2 hypervisor, that is called the hosted hypervisor. In the hosted hypervisor, what you see is that on a physical over the physical machine, there will be an operating system running on it, and this is called the host operating system. Now, above this particular machine and its operating system, there will be a layer of hypervisor, and this is called type 2 hypervisor. And this type of hypervisor is called hosted hypervisor. So, we have now being able to define you the two types of two popular models of virtualization, that is type 1 and type 2 virtualization models. The first virtualization model is called the bare metal hypervisor. The other type of hypervisor is called the hosted hypervisor, that is type 2. Now, let us go in more detail about the bare metal virtual machine or bare metal virtualization model, which is called type 1. So, virtual machine monitor or the hypervisor in type 1 manages all the hardware resources and supports the execution of the entire virtual machine. For example, here this is the example of a type 1 hypervisor. So, you know that this is the type 1 hypervisor, which sits just above the hardware and takes the full control of the hardware. Now, if it takes the full control of the hardware, then it gives an access to the guest operating system, which is running in the virtual machines. So, the virtual machines are having the operating system, and this is called the guest operating system. So, guest operating system will access these hardware resources not directly, but they will get an access through a virtual hardware resources, such as if let us say this guest operating system wants to access the CPU for execution, he will be getting an access to that particular physical, not physical, but a virtual CPU it will get. Memory also a virtual memory. So, entire now from that virtual memory to actual access to the hardware will be done through the hypervisor, that is called virtual machine monitor. So, therefore, bare metal hypervisor or type 1 hypervisor manages all the hardware resources and supports the execution of the entire virtual machines. For example, this is particular figure has 2 virtual machines, 3 virtual machines, all of them will be accessing the hardware, and this particular management of hardware for all these virtual machine is the responsibility of the virtual machine monitor or a type 1 hypervisor, that is a bare metal hypervisor. Now, this particular hypervisor is privileged and service virtual machine to deal with the devices and other configuration and the management task. So, you can think of a hypervisor as a operating system of operating systems in this particular way. Now, let us see about the bare metal virtualization model. Now, this particular type of model is now you can see the example as VMware ESXi. So, VMware EXSI and EXSI is an example of bare metal virtualization or bare metal hypervisor or bare metal. So, here given that the virtual that VMware and its hypervisor were first to market. So, VMware still owns the largest percentage of virtualized server cores, and these server cores runs on VMware's ESXi hypervisor and provide the drivers for different devices, and they are going to be part of that hypervisor, and lot of APIs are there with a third party developers for this particular application. Now, another type of hypervisor is called hosted hypervisor, that is type 2 hypervisor.